So the panel on governance is being moderated by Professor Diane Davis, who's Professor of Urbanism and Development at Harvard Graduate School of Design. Professor Davis's work examines the relationship between urbanization and national development, the politics of urban development policy, and conflict cities. She has explored topics such as urban social movements and governance, fragmented sovereignty, and state formation. Her current research focuses on the transformation of cities in the global south, particularly the social and political conflicts that have emerged in response to globalization, informality, and political or economic violence. Davis is an elected member of the Urban and Regional Development section of the International Sociological Association and serves on the editorial boards of several notable journals. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Gareth. Good afternoon. I'm glad most of you have come back from lunch, so I think we're going to have a great panel, and I'm not going to spend too much time giving an introduction because we are running a little late, and we might try to end this panel within 1 hour. We'll see how it goes. When the conference started this morning, after the really intense discussion about environmental sustainability and all the challenges facing the Bahamas, the Exuma and the Bahamas in general, I started worrying that people were going to be bored when we got to the panel on governance. And then after the second panel, when we got to economic development, I breathed a sigh of relief because I realized we really needed this panel because we really need to think about these two challenges at the same time, environmental sustainability and economic sustainability, and they are not necessarily in sync all the time. And any decision that is taken that could simultaneously foster both ecological and environmental sustainability is going to need institutional action. It's not, as we saw in the debate, it's not just going to happen with one group saying this is what we need and another group saying that that's what we need, and everybody comes into the problem from a particular vantage point. So in order to really address all these things together, institutional context of making decisions about the future is very central. When you think about institutional action, of course you think about governance structures that lay out institutional arrangements, but we also think about citizens and NGOs and the private sector and the ways in which they have a conversation together or represent interests. And I think that that's what the panel is going to be about today, thinking a little more about the governance institutions and structures and the challenges that exist to create consensus, to foster dialogue, to share knowledge and generate knowledge across the important domains, government, private sector, civil society, all of whom have a stake in the future but maybe not see things through the same lens. So today I'm excited that we have two different people who are involved in governance. And we will start first with Theophilus Cox. Theophilus began his teaching career at the A.F. Adderley Senior High School here in Nassau. As an educator, he served 10 years in the classroom and 20 years in administration throughout the Commonwealth. His educational background includes a diploma in youth work from the University of Guyana, a bachelor's degree from the University of Miami, and a master's degree from Andrew University in Berrien Spring, Michigan. In 2002, Theophilus joined the Department of Local Government as the Family Island Administrator and is presently posted in Exuma. And he's going to tell us a little more about administration, politics, conversation in Exuma.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My task here this afternoon is mainly to point out the challenges that face local government and some suggestions that could be put in place to move toward a more sustainable future. Like other islands of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the day-to-day activities is usually coordinated by the local government, which is headed by a chief counselor. While the idea itself is an excellent one, there are serious challenges as to what they can and cannot do. As it now stands, most of the decisions that are made affecting the island are still being made by central government in New Providence. This often poses a challenge because usually the local government have no input, and at the end of the day, they're required to monitor these projects that they know nothing about. In Exuma, if Exuma is to move forward, there must be a re-examining of the powers and the resources allocated to local government. In other words, there need to be a paradigm shift. In order for this shift to take place, though, there must be an amendment to the Local Government Act of 1996. It is imperative that a strategic plan be put in place so that successive council will not have to plan or put new ideas in place every time there is a change of leadership. Local government, in my humble opinion, needs to be given more autonomy. It is my view that they should be placed in a position where they can generate their own revenue and be monitored by the public treasury with the assistance of a certified accountant. It is difficult for one to believe the amount of money that local government in Exuma receives when Exuma contributes so much to the public treasury. In 2011, Exuma contributed $10,641,571.53 to the public treasury. That same year, they received $665,600. In 2012, Exuma contributed $11,286,778.34. In that same year, they received $665,600. Yes, they received the same amount. Something has to be wrong with that picture. While the revenue collected in Exuma may be looked at by others as very productive compared to other islands, it is but a drop in the bucket when we look at the leakage that exists in the Keys, because millions of dollars are unaccounted for. This is one area that I feel that local government, if empowered, can collect revenue on central government's behalf, since central government do not have offices in all of the Keys. Among the numerous areas of local government that local government is responsible for, garbage collection is one of those. And last year, more than 5% of that budget was allocated to garbage collection. Sad to say that in spite of all that money and effort that is being made, there are still some indiscriminate dumping. Some locals still believe that it is local government responsibility to clean up after them. This must change. Exuma, we know, is a boating community of the Bahamas, and we are proud of that. But the concern comes as to what happens to the waste that these boaters generate. There is a waste management plant situated in Georgetown, but the question arises as to what happened to these boaters who are situated in the Keys. While this does not come directly under local government, it is of serious concern. The job of the chief counselor, I feel, should be a full-time paid job. As it now stands, we cannot expect anyone to give up themselves full-time when they have a family to sustain. I am of the view that the chief counselor should be elected by the majority of the people, just like the member of parliament, and not be left to the 5 or 9 persons to make decisions for the rest of the island. Because of the way the system is set up and other mitigating circumstances, local government is not attracting the brightest of mind in the community. Central government, at times, they do send and ask the council for some input and their opinion, but a man can only take you as far as he has gone himself. The government realized this, and as a result, they have established junior council in the senior schools. What they want to do is to educate the students at the high school level, so by the time they graduate, they would now have a better understanding of what local government is all about. This, I think, is a move in the right direction. The appointment of statutory boards is another area that local government is really responsible for, and that is very crucial. While I will not be able to elaborate on all of them, I will just touch on a few. From my experience, it appears that the elected members who are responsible for these appointments seem not to be able to move beyond their petty differences and appoint persons who are truly qualified to do the job. Town planning is one of those statutory boards that need to be closely monitored, as this board is really responsible for the present and future of the entire island. The way forward requires a strategic land policy plan for the development of the island. All areas, I feel, should be properly zoned, and those zoning laws should be adhered to strictly. Developers should not be allowed to build what they want, where they feel like, tamper with the wetland, and fill in the creeks. The locals should also be made aware that these laws also apply to them. An area of concern is the slow response that central government agencies attribute when it comes to when breaches are reported to them by the Town Planning Board. As it now stands, the Town Planning Board do not have the authority to stop a project if there is a breach. We need central government agencies to do that. In conclusion, I strongly feel that local government can be a very, very effective tool if some amendments are made to the existing act, which I feel should include: 1, give local government more autonomy; 2, make it mandatory for councils, with the assistance of central government, to establish a strategic plan for the development of the island; 3, make provision for local government to generate their own funds; 4, local government under strict supervision to collect monies from the keys on central government behalf; 5, more of the revenue collected from the islands should be returned to assist the development of the island; 6, council should have greater input in what type of development is being negotiated for the island; 7, make chief councilor's position a full-time paid job; 8, allow the entire district to vote for the position of a chief councilor; 9, set a distinctive guidelines as to the qualification needed for appointment to statutory boards; and 10, to establish a family island section in New Providence for the port and town planning area, so that the applicants do not have to wait 6 to 12 months for a response. While some of these recommendations are made may seem far-fetched to some, they do offer an excellent springboard to begin negotiation as to how best we can improve and move Exuma forward toward a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Theophilus. I'm sure there's going to be questions and comments about that. But before we open it out to the audience for responses, we're going to turn over to our speaker, Esther Rolle, who completed her studies at Penn Foster Career International in 2010, where she received her certificate in medical assistance. Esther interned at the local clinic in Blackpoint, Exuma, where she had firsthand exposure to the particular needs of the Blackpoint community. Rolle was the first woman to be elected as a counselor to the local government board for Blackpoint in 2009 and again in 2012, where she continues to be an active member in the community. Esther?
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Please don't go sleep on me. I see some eyes done already dropping. We had a great meal. Without environmental, sustainable economy, stability, social cohesion cannot be achieved, according to Phil Haddon, 2007. Protocol has already been established. A pleasant good afternoon to all. It's an honor for me to have been given this opportunity to speak on behalf of local government about some of the most beautiful island in the Bahamas, the Exuma Keys. Sustainable development is a development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their need. It focuses on improving the quality of life for all of its citizens without increasing the use of natural resources beyond what the environment is able to adequate supply indefinitely. Sustainable development, therefore, is all about taking action, being proactive rather than reactive. Having given a definition of sustainable development, let me hasten to say that there is a great need for sustainable development in the Exuma Keys. If one is to survive the foreseeable future and beyond, I am going to focus my attention on three aspects of sustainable development. There are ocean management, solar and wind energy development, and ecotourism. In the Bahamas, many persons derive their livelihood from the ocean. It is a great source of food not only for Bahamians, but for others throughout the world by way of exportation because of our great marine life. Not only is the ocean used for fishing, but it also serves as a transshipping route as well as for recreational purpose. Knowing this, we need to do all we can to ensure preservation and conservation of the ocean. While it is impossible to manage the ocean, we can lobby for governments to act laws, to make amendments to laws, to enforce or regulate, as the case may be, against ocean littering and pollution. The following examples are some scenarios that needed to be adequately addressed. Firstly, the discarding of garbage, bottle, cans, plastic, etc., in proper receptacle, because when they are not properly disposed of, they can cause the deadly marine life, which can reduce the species among over a period of time, eventually causing extinction of that species. Secondly, the chemical and oil spillage from large and small motor vessels. These kinds of pollution kills the coral reef and other marine life. Thirdly, an increase of effort regarding marine life to maintain the tourism business. Of particular interest is the lionfish invasion that is consuming the juvenile fish of the native species. Special effort needed to be implemented to control these most deadly species. I wish we had some on our plate today. The Exuma Keys, like all the rest of the Bahamas, has to enjoy high electricity rate in order to ensure that the home receive proper heat and light energy. This is the greatest single strain on the economy growth in the Bahamas. Our country is one which receives approximately 300 days of sunshine annually and about the same amount of days with wind speed at 15 knots or more. If only these natural energies can be converted into solar and renewable energy, it will do so well for our people in the following manner. A, the cost of electricity would be drastically lower. The need for gas and diesel would be drastically reduced. The cost of purchasing oil will be sustainably reduced or non-existent. These facts have been proven by the owner of Over Yonder Key, where solar energy is already in existence. There is also a need for our government to promote and encourage renewable energy sources development, as it could eliminate the total dependence on diesel generator and the costs associated with running these machines. A decision to convert the present energy system into solar energy and other renewable sources can be part of the sustainable development plan, which would replace the existing non-renewable energy sources presently being used. It would also help to preserve the environment so that the generation to come are able to enjoy the benefits of renewable, cheaper energy and the continuing protection of our environment. Ecotourism. One of the fastest growing segments of ecotourism around the world. In the Bahamas, ecotourism, environmental responsible tourism that perpetuate the natural, historical, and cultural heritage of the Bahamas and promotes, educate, conservation, and sustainable development while involved and provide benefits to local community. The principle of ecotourism is about uniting conservation communities and sustainable travel. This means that those who implement would participate in ecotourism activity shall be guided by the following ecotourism principle that will highlight different aspects of sustainable ecotourism. These include maximizing the impact of destroying things that are indigenous to the area and respecting the law governing the plant, fauna, land, animal, and fishing so as to preserve them for generations to come. Building environmental and cultural awareness and respect, ensure that the environment always kept clean and safe. Providing positive experience for both visitors such as native dish, culture storytelling, dance, being polite and friendly, swimming with the pigs and sharks, sailing in the land, sea, and park, feeding iguanas, scuba diving, boom fishing, game fishing, and underwater cave exploration, snorkeling, visiting blowholes, straw craft, rental accommodation. Keeping the preserved areas always in a great position naturally, providing financial benefits and empowerment for local people. Purchasing of local goods, assisting locals to become entrepreneurs. Obtain feedback from our visitors, which shall be brought to the attention of nature as well as government officers. These visitors can also highlight strong parts and suggest room for improvement. Encourage our visitors to tell their friends about how well they enjoy their stay. Once these points are well thought out and the plan properly organized and implemented, we will be well on our way to a sustainable development in the Exuma Keys. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to pose a question to my panelists, but let me just say something that struck me in listening to these presentations, some themes that maybe we'll return to when we open it out to the audience. But it strikes me that the issue of what is the scale at which you're planning is a really important question. We heard from Theo about a tension between the central government and the local government, not having the capacity at the local level to be able to do things that people at the level of the community feel is important. So I think that's one issue that we want to think about. But on the other hand, listening to Esther's presentation, one also has to think about the ways in which, when you give power to the locality, the decisions that are made may have spillover effects to other islands as well. So it's not always a simple decision about whether the power is going to be only at the central government or only at the local government, but thinking about the ways in which these different units of governance can come together in a plan for a sustainable Exuma. That's just one issue I wanted to put on the table, but I really want to open it up to questions from the audience. Who's going to be the first? Yes.
Mr. Cox, I have a devil's advocate question for you. You talked about, well, actually I have two. You talked about the amount of money that Exuma puts into the into the Bahamian economy and how little they get back. But on another, let's look at, say, Rumkey, for example, where they don't probably put anything really into the Bahamian economy. So shouldn't they deserve to get some of that pool back? So I can see other islands arguing, and including New Providence, where the majority of people live, saying that, yes, you produce this, but this is for the entire country. And then the second question I have for you, or comment, is how do we control sort of local government decisions also, because I think it was in Crooked Island. I can't remember. I've been to so many of the islands where local government approved the mining of sand off of a beach, and it completely changed the environment. So there's give and play in both what you've been saying. Thank you.
Okay, let me attack the second one first. You remember me saying that because of the structure, we do not receive the brightest of minds. You remember me saying that? Okay. So I will just leave that one at that. And the other one was, when it comes to the distribution of funds, what we realize that there are some islands who do not contribute as much to the treasury. And of course, others have to help them along because they don't contribute almost anything. I am not saying that we should get all that you give, but at least if you give so much, at least there should be what you receive should be a reflection of what you give. 10%.
Administrator, Counselor, I'm a little concerned about this perception of what goes in the pot and what comes out. I use electricity as an illustration. The Bahamas has a unified electricity rate. So every consumer of electricity in New Providence could legitimately complain that they transfer millions of dollars to the Family Islands, because every time they turn the light on, money is sent to Crooked Island, Acklands, Exuma, Andrews, and Eleuthera, because New Providence generates electricity at a price that permits the consumers here to purchase it for somewhere around 20 cents a kilowatt. We charge 45 cents, but that's not sufficient to recoup the costs in Exuma. I just say that to get beyond the discussion as to how you transfer the money. I think if Exuma, Eleuthera, Andrews take into account the police, the clinic, the infrastructure, and the heavy investment, and then against that background, perhaps determine, okay, what are the specified things in the Local Government Act that we are responsible for, and how much does it cost to deliver those services? And base the request for money on the things that they are authorized and responsible for, we get a more intelligent discussion as to how much money should be allocated for local government. Coupled with your point about capacity with respect to the statutory boards. And I'll end with one final observation. When the council is elected and you're responsible for administering it, an organization like the Bahamas National Trust or BEST, do they provide you with a template of the critical resource constraints in the island that you're administering? Here's the water, here are the wetlands, here are the issues. When you make decisions, these are the things for which you should have regard, so that your decisions are then based against an objective standard rather than dependent on who gets elected.
When it comes to that, it depends on the island you're on, because when you move from island to island, you find that one group is more knowledgeable than the other group. And so while one group will be up to speed as to what is expected, the others don't have a clue. And so it now leaves to the administrator now to try to educate them. And of course, they've been doing it the wrong way so long. They believe that who were you to come and change it from how we had it? This is the way we always did it.
Administrator, I have one question, and perhaps you could help me with this. You suggested that as you develop Exuma and the islands of Exuma, perhaps we should have a comprehensive plan for the Exumas and an individual plan, or a comprehensive individual plan with appropriate zoning on each one of the islands in Exuma. I want you to help me with how do we develop that, considering Exuma is primarily divided into common land, generational land, and a small section of the government-owned land, and then the islands of Exuma that some people call the Keys of Exuma. How do you tell a private developer, this is how I want you to develop your land, or this is the direction I'd like for your island to take shape, having regard for the fact that primarily now, all we have is you need to get approval for a building that is on the island rather than approval for the entire island at the same time?
Okay, the commonage is another story, because I don't think the central government itself has a handle on that, because that has been a series we have had a series of complaints about those. But as far as you putting in place zoning, the Bahamas belong to you. And I don't think an investor or who should come and tell you what they want. You should, this,
I'm talking about the locals who primarily own this common land. They will say to me, you are a road, I own all of this tract. You go develop it however you want to develop it. And all I need to do primarily is to go to local government, take my house plan for your approval, as opposed to taking the tract or the island to say, how does this fit into the comprehensive plan that you have for the island?
well, if personally, I feel that if the island is zoned, be it commonage, be it crown land, or what have you, once that is zoned, that is what should take place. Now, if you decide to build in that particular area, this is a type of structure that you need to put here. What I found in Exuma that there have been a lot of breaching of the Subdivision Act. You know, you have an area that's been zoned for private homes. We have apartments and duplex. And the question that they want to put to me is, well, you had this area is zoned for private homes. You have these duplex here. So if you give them the permission to put the duplex, you need to give me the same consent. And so that is now causing what I'm saying to them. Regardless of what they did in the past, this is what we're going to do now. If it's a family plot, this is what we're going to put here. If it's a zone for duplex or multifamily, that's what we're going to put there. We cannot build on something that was an error and continue to do so.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cox. I'm sorry I missed your presentation. You may have addressed this already. Administrator, that's the same as commissioner?
Basically,
Oh, okay, all right. I wasn't too sure.
only thing, the commission has more power.
Oh, okay. Whose job is it within the various settlements to see about issues that a settlement might have? Because over the years, I've seen the settlement of Mount Thompson just die because of one problem with the farm road there that floods almost every couple of years, or every season or so. It floods and it's impassable. And there's a lot of commonage land that you can't even access unless you have like a dinghy or something like that to get to it during the flood time. And for years now, they've been struggling with this farm road that is just absolutely terrible, and it's just done a lot of damage to the whole agricultural industry. The very place where they used to dry onions, that's in a mess. The packing house has crumbled. I mean, whose duty is it to take care of these areas? You know, I mean, I've been tempted just to go there and rebuild the place where they dry the onion and rip down all of the mess that's in the packing house. And they say, well, if you do that, then you'll get in trouble from the government. But so it seems if communities are like, they're almost held hostage. Whose job is that to take care of things like that?
Well, if you were here, you would, others would recall that my suggestion was that there need to be, the whole act need to be re-examined. There's certain things that local government is responsible for that is spelled out in the act, and what you're talking about is not one of them. So that's a central government responsibility, yes.
Well, that seems that the central government cares.
Well, I won't to speak.
Now Now we're getting started. Okay, there's a question there, and then I think there are two over here.
Yes, I would like to speak to the issue of the comprehensive plan to try to answer the question that came before. A comprehensive plan does not happen in isolation, okay? And you have to look at all of the various segments as it involves a community. As you're looking at that, the land does play an important part. Okay? And you're looking for the best use of the land, okay? So, no, it's not going to happen in isolation. And yes, it's needed. Okay, thanks.
How many more questions to have?
There's one there, and there's one in the back. This woman here.
How many more to go? I mean,
Oh, well, I see two more.
Hi, Mr. Cox, Ms. Rolle, thank you for your presentations. This is a question for both of you. You spoke about ecotourism, Ms. Rolle. What role do you think that local government can play in helping to create opportunities for ecotourism, or in your communities, or is that something that you see as the government's role?
Well, mainly the budget that local government receives, very little they can do. And what previous council have done, instead of reading the act and becoming familiar with what the act says, they went ahead and established themselves as employment agencies. And so they went ahead and hired a dray load of persons. And so if you look at that budget that is given to them, more than half of that budget goes to salary. And so it's difficult now for the present, the persons who are in place now to do anything about that, because that would mean firing those persons that the previous council hired.
Thank you very much. Floyd and Bristol. Mr. Cox, I really like your spirit, and I think, as was the case with Mr. Wilson, in order for us to recognize that we have a problem, we have to identify those problems to properly resolve them. For too long, I can speak for the Bahamas, we have given cosmetic problems and always get cosmetic solutions. That's why we still have the real problem, because we have never addressed it. And I listened to the minister respond to your to some of the questions made, and the former minister. But the thing is this: we have to give the persons who have been elected in the past credit for all of the things that went well in this country. But by the same yardstick, we have to hold them responsible for the problems that we face if we have problems. And if we continue to do the same things over and over, we will never resolve the problems. Einstein says, you cannot create solutions using the same consciousness that created those problems. Now, Adam Smith, the dean of economics, said that the production of any society should have a share of land, capital, and labor. And I think because labor has not ever been respected, we have the difficulty where two agents get all of the benefits of a society and labor gets none. And we cannot build a society on a foundation like that.
all right. Did she answer you?
That's a question.
That was a comment.
Good afternoon, John Kenton, Director of Public Works. So in part I'm responding to the lady who made the comment there about where's central government. First of all, I'd like to say how much I welcome this forum and what a brilliant idea I think it is. And secondly, I'd like to endorse the much voiced sentiment, which is the need for planning. And indeed, that's an issue which is currently being addressed within the ministry in the respect that we're recognising the need for a strategic planning unit that actually plans investment. And I think that's, again, it's a very, very important point, because we're talking about governments, central government, local government, and the reality is that it's central government that directs national infrastructure investment, and because it has a responsibility across a very wide field. I think the sentiment of the current government certainly is that they'd wish to redress the balance, and that the historic, certainly recent historic investment in New Providence will be tempered by more of a focus on investing in infrastructure in family islands. And I can certainly see that happening as the major investments on New Providence come to a close. The NP RIP project, the Airport Gateway project, Sports Centre Rehabilitation project, all be finishing this year. So the finance that has gone, the very finance-hungry, heavy infrastructure investment will, I think, start to find its way into family islands. We're seeing that with North Abaco Port, and I think in that context it's important to say that the one key infrastructure project that I've got on my desk at the moment is in fact Exuma Port and Highway, which is a project being financed by Caribbean Development Bank. I think the only other observations I'd make are that planning has to be followed by prioritisation, and then prioritisation by an action plan. And you know, we're hoping to produce something like a 3-year budget, which will mean that there is some continuity of investment, and hopefully get cross-party agreement, which is a move that has only just happened in the UK. National Infrastructure Plan, here we are, 2013. It's taken us that long to recognise that infrastructure investment shouldn't be a party political football. It should be a national policy with cross-party agreement to it. So I think perhaps that's a lesson we can learn. I don't know what the models in the States are, but certainly that's the way the UK is now moving. They recognise that you can't afford to have construction as an economic and political regulator. I'm sorry if I've overstayed my welcome in terms of what I've said. I think I'll just hand over to Tran Rogers, who can give, I think, a very specific response in terms of the packing house. But I think the final thing I'd like to say is that unfortunately we're doing all this against what couldn't be a more difficult economic background. It's very, very good to have a wish list, but it's a very, very different matter to have extremely tight economic resources. And the headlines this morning, I think, were a call for all government departments to cut their spending by 25%. So this plan really has to be very, very wise, is all I would say. And we're calling for collective wisdom.
We have some very anxious ladies at the front who would like to pose their questions.
Good afternoon. Esther, this one is for you. I'm trying to wonder, because I'm hearing it sounds a bit difficult, how empowered is the committee, the local government council in Exuma, and has the council partnered with any other entities to try and implement some of that sustainable tourism and the eco-friendly things that you talked about in your presentation? Have you partnered with any NGOs or anything like that to be able to implement those kinds of things over there?
Well, how much power you say we have as local government? Well, I'm sorry. As the administrator has said that, you know, we only have so much power as local government to do so much things, and we can only do so much. And all we can do also is just encourage persons in the community to basically just, you know, do what they can to encourage our tourists, the tourism, or the tourists that is coming into our community and stuff. But most of the time we are powerless. We are really powerless, as administrator said, you know, because we really don't have that finance, and all of the money really goes and pays out to the workers.
I'd like to add, to help address that. I mean, one of the things that's really important, we're working, Rochelle and I wear a number of hats, obviously, and one is part of a major GEF project, Global Environmental Facility Funded Project. And one of the elements of that is to develop a sustainable tourism plan for the Exumas. And I know we've been doing a lot of work in Blackpoint and in Staniel and also in Farmers. And the objective is to develop a system that will create opportunities. We intend, very bluntly, the folks that poach in the Exuma Park from any part of the Exumas, our objective is to turn them into entrepreneurs. They're going to be scuba certified, snorkeling certified. We're going to create snorkeling trails. We're going to address this issue of harvesting top to make sure that it's harvested sustainably as opposed to. So a lot of these issues are being addressed through this GEF full-size project, and it's actually going to be rolled into a lot of the work that we do in Blackpoint as a community. And so I think we're going to be able to address a lot of these issues that have been plaguing us as an organization. And the minister asked about, what we might bring to local government or to administrator. And what we're trying to bring is a model, a system that works, which will bring real economic opportunities for Blackpoint. And what we've done in Exumas, through that project, we're already starting to look at, in fact, other islands, including like Abaco. So I think there's some good opportunities that are beginning to be realized to provide economic sustainability for the communities. Sorry about that, Reg.
Mr. Smith also wants to make a comment relative to that question.
I think one of the thank you very much. I think one of the points that was trying to be made was that we have a framework. We have a framework that is working in other areas of the country. The question is, how do we make it work in Exuma? How do we make local government actually work? We have elected officials in positions who do nothing really, and so the idea is, how do we get them to work? One of the suggestions that was made in a meeting that we had recently in Georgetown was that we identify what it is these people are supposed to do. What does the chief counsel do? What's his job? He has absolutely no idea. What does a councilman do? He's elected, but what's his job? We have a councilman right here who's head of a West Township who creates his job description. Glenn Davis, right here. And he is out trying to do things in the community. But the framework within which these folk have to work gives them no specification of what it is they do. So if you hire someone who's never had a position like this, maybe doesn't even hold a job, maybe doesn't even work, how does he know what to do with this elected position? He doesn't. So we have to, if we want to make a change in local government, I believe, we have to start to define these positions. I think administrator said elect our chief counsel. Well, let's give him a job description. Pay him out of that $500,000, or give him a way of finding more money. We always talk about how much money we get back, but how much money we produce. We could increase what Exuma produces if we have a local government that functions. I believe that. So just a comment that maybe one of the things we have to do is define what it is these elected people do, so that it doesn't work in Long Island and not in Exuma. We know what the job is. And so we put people in position who can do these jobs. That's it.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to end this session because we have another session coming up and we're running late. But I wanted to make some general comments. I think building on all the really important observations made by people in the audience and our two speakers, that one word that hasn't come up yet is the concept of accountability. And I think that this is what we're talking about. And accountability is not just something in terms of expectations of citizens of their elected officials and vice versa. It seems to me that in this context, the issue is accountability across the scales of government. So the local government doesn't feel accountable to the central government because it's really giving its money, not getting anything back, and vice versa. So there are lots of lost opportunities for connecting projects at these different scales through lenses of accountability. And I think that that's something that we can think about in the future. How that relates to planning, because a couple of people, and I'm very happy to hear being a professor in planning, the planning seems to be the magic solution, but let's not forget that who is doing the planning is the question. And with what mind frame and with what priority, is it a local or a national, the unity of the Bahamas? I think there's no easy answer, but you want to actually have that multiple conversation going all the time. What's good for Exuma should be good for Bahamas and vice versa. So those are the kinds of institutional structures and conversations that you want to start linking planning to accountability across the different scales of the Bahama, because just as a final comment, the environmental problem as well as the economic sustainability problem cannot be solved at one small site. It just can't be. So you have to be constantly thinking about how to leverage opportunities and resources across sites that are helpful for local communities, but also that build a more vibrant Bahama in general. So I think we'll end and move on to the next panel. Thank our speakers, please.